Years later, when Vanessa reflected on that unforgettable day, she rarely talked about the slap itself. She talked about what came after. She talked about grace. She talked about perseverance. She talked about choosing purpose over bitterness. Because the truth is that anyone can become angry after being mistreated. But transforming pain into purpose requires extraordinary courage. The courtroom eventually forgot many of the cases heard that year. People forgot names, dates, and legal arguments, but they never forgot the image of a woman walking back into the room that had humiliated her and taking her rightful place with dignity, honor, and strength. And perhaps that is why her story continues to inspire people today. Not because justice arrived instantly, not because life suddenly became easy, but because Vanessa Carter proved that no act of disrespect is powerful enough to destroy a dream that refuses to die. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Your support helps these uplifting stories reach more people around the world. Sometimes the greatest victory is not getting even. Sometimes the greatest victory is rising so high that the people who doubted you can no longer ignore your light. And on that unforgettable day in Chicago, Vanessa Carter did exactly that. The paperwork had already been finalized. The oath ceremony was scheduled for later that week. As investigations began unfolding inside the courthouse, senior judicial officials arrived. They reviewed records, interviewed witnesses, and examined security footage. The evidence was undeniable. Vanessa had done nothing wrong. The officer had acted improperly. News spread rapidly through the building. Court staff whispered in hallways. Lawyers exchanged shocked looks. Some people recognized Vanessa from legal aid programs. Others remembered her volunteer work helping struggling families. The more officials learned about her, the more astonishing the situation became. This wasn't a disruptive visitor. This wasn't someone causing trouble. This was a woman who had dedicated years of her life to helping vulnerable people navigate the justice system. Meanwhile, Vanessa sat quietly in a waiting room. She thought about her parents. She remembered her mother's tired hands after long cleaning shifts. She remembered her father's encouragement every time life became difficult. She remembered nights studying until 2 a.m. because she refused to abandon her dreams. Tears filled her eyes, not because of the slap, because she suddenly realized how far she had come. Hours later, a senior judicial administrator entered the room. His face carried a mixture of sadness and respect. The courthouse leadership had made a decision. Given the extraordinary circumstances and the presence of state officials already conducting reviews, they would move forward with a portion of Vanessa's judicial appointment process immediately. The ceremony would be informal, private, but it would happen that day. A short time later, Vanessa walked back into the very courtroom where she had been humiliated. The atmosphere had completely changed. People who had witnessed the incident were still present. Many looked ashamed. Others looked emotional. Several stood as she entered. The judge invited her forward. Court personnel gathered quietly around the bench. Then came the moment nobody expected. Vanessa took her oath. She promised to uphold the law. She promised to serve justice fairly. She promised to treat every individual with dignity and respect. The room remained silent as she completed the final words. Then something extraordinary happened. The presiding judge stepped aside and invited Vanessa to sit temporarily in the judge's seat as part of the ceremonial recognition of her appointment. Just hours earlier, she had stood in that same room after being slapped and humiliated. Now she was sitting in the judge's chair. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. Several people began wiping tears from their eyes. Court reporters later described the moment as one of the most powerful scenes they had ever witnessed. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about humiliation being returned. It was about dignity. It was about perseverance. It was about proving that a person's worth cannot be defined by how others choose to treat them. The officer involved was removed from duty pending investigation. Appropriate disciplinary actions followed, but Vanessa never celebrated his downfall. Instead, she focused on her responsibilities. Over the following years, Judge Vanessa Carter became known throughout Chicago for her fairness and compassion. She listened carefully to every person who appeared before her. She treated wealthy executives and struggling single parents with equal respect. People noticed, communities noticed, young students noticed. Many young black girls attended courthouse educational programs just to meet her. They saw someone who looked like them, sitting where history once told them they couldn't belong. and Vanessa always shared the same message. Never allow someone else's opinion to become your identity. Never allow a moment of humiliation to define your future. Never stop believing in your own potential. Her story spread across schools, churches, community centers, and legal organizations throughout the United States, not because she became famous, but because she represented hope, the kind of hope people desperately need when life feels unfair, the kind of hope that reminds us that setbacks are often chapters, not endings. Before we reach the end of this story, please leave a comment with the words, "Rise above." It helps spread this message of strength and resilience to more people who may need it today. Cops slapped a black woman in court. Seconds later, she took the judge's seat. The sharp sound of a slap echoed across the courtroom, freezing everyone in place. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Lawyers stopped writing. Witnesses held their breath. Reporters lowered their cameras. Even the judge looked stunned. A black woman named Vanessa Carter stood silently beside the defense table, one hand touching her cheek where a court officer had struck her. The humiliation burned deeper than the pain itself. Hundreds of eyes were staring at her, waiting to see what she would do next. What happened in the next few minutes would shock everyone in that courtroom and become a story people across America would never forget. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, fairness, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends, leave a comment below, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. The courtroom was located in Chicago, Illinois, inside one of the city's busiest courthouses. Vanessa Carter was 42 years old and worked as a legal assistant at a small community law office. She wasn't rich, she wasn't famous. Most people had never heard her name before that day, but Vanessa carried something powerful inside her. She carried resilience. Growing up on Chicago's South Side had never been easy. Her father, Marcus Carter, worked long shifts driving city buses. Her mother, Patricia Carter, cleaned offices late at night. Money was always tight, and opportunities often seemed distant. As a child, Vanessa loved reading. While other children played outside, she spent hours in libraries reading books about American history, civil rights, and the justice system. She admired judges because they represented fairness and equality in her eyes. Yet reality often looked very different. Vanessa experienced prejudice throughout her life. Teachers underestimated her. Employers overlooked her. People judged her before they knew her story. Still, she kept moving forward. She attended community college while working part-time jobs. She studied law books during lunch breaks. She volunteered at neighborhood legal clinics. Slowly, year after year, she built a reputation as someone who genuinely cared about helping people. On the morning of the incident, Vanessa was accompanying an elderly client named Harold Jenkins to court. Harold was a retired veteran facing a complicated housing dispute. He was nervous, frightened, and confused by the legal process. Vanessa wasn't even required to be there. She came because she knew Harold had nobody else. The courthouse was crowded. Tensions were high. Court schedules were running behind. Frustration filled the hallways. Inside the courtroom, confusion erupted when several cases were being rearranged. People were moving around. Names were being called. Documents were exchanged rapidly. During the commotion, Harold became disoriented and accidentally walked toward the wrong section of the courtroom. Vanessa immediately moved to help him. As she stepped forward, one of the court officers misunderstood the situation. Believing she was interfering with court proceedings, he grabbed her arm aggressively. Vanessa tried to explain, but before she could finish, the officer lost his temper. The slap echoed through the room. Silence followed, a terrible silence. Vanessa felt the sting on her face, but the deeper wound came from something else. Humiliation, disrespect. The feeling that her dignity had been stripped away in front of dozens of strangers. Many people expected her to scream. Others expected her to fight back. Instead, Vanessa stood perfectly still. Years of hardship had taught her that true strength often appears in moments of restraint. Court administrators rushed forward. The judge immediately ordered the courtroom secured. Witnesses were questioned. Security footage was requested. What nobody knew at that moment was that Vanessa had a remarkable secret. For nearly 8 years, she had been studying law during evenings and weekends. While working full-time, she had completed her legal education. She had passed examinations. She had spent years preparing for something she rarely discussed publicly. Just 2 days earlier, she had received official notice confirming her appointment as a temporary administrative judge for a community legal outreach program supported by the state judiciary.